With the breaking of the continents bringing an end to the Age of Legends, the survivors were left to rebuild their lives in a new world, losing many of the great social and technological advances from the previous era. West of the Aerith Ocean, in the lands of Shanchan, violence erupted between humans and Shadow Spawn, while in the eastern lands of Shara, the people united under a single government. Then there were those who survived the breaking by sailing the seas, settling on nearby islands and becoming known as the Sea Folk. In the Westlands, the Dashane Aiel, who once served the Aes Sedai during the Age of Legends, were given a great mission during the years of the breaking, tasked with transporting powerful relics to a safe location where they might remain hidden from exploitation. The Dashane were known to be good-hearted people dedicated to the Way of the Leaf, an honor-based pacifist philosophy, but with the chaos and violence that surrounded them during the years of the journey, doubts and division spread, with a group breaking off to form the Tuatha'an, or traveling people, who continued to practice pacifism but abandoned their mission and went their own way. Those who remained then again fractured, with some choosing to embrace violence in order to keep the others safe, becoming spear-based desert warriors, while the rest became Gen Aiel, remaining true to their duty and culture. In the end, they completed their mission, arriving in the eastern wastelands to found the city of Ruidion, and while the Gen Aiel eventually died out, the warrior Aiel clans continued to endure for thousands of years to come. Meanwhile, those humans who remained in the Westlands started to form new communities and governments, with 10 nations emerging and prospering, thanks in part to the female Aes Sedai who survived the wars of the past age, many of whom united together in 47 AB to establish Tarvalin as their homeland. But not all channelers of the One Power were willing to submit to this new authority, and so competing Aes Sedai factions went to war for decades. In 77 AB, the largest faction, based out of Tarvalin, won a major victory against their rivals, and while the conflict continued for many years, by 98 AB the war was over, and Elisane Tishar was chosen as their first leader, given the title of Amerlin Seat. With the Aes Sedai now formally united, they were able to aid the Westlands establish peace and form alliances, which eventually led to the creation of the Compact of 10 Nations in 209 AB, a mutual defense pact initiated by Queen Mabrium and Sharid of Aramael, an Aes Sedai of the Grey Aja, believed to have been Teviran, a hero spun out of the Wheel of Time to fulfill a specific purpose, able to greatly influence those around them and inspire loyalty. The compact worked well for many years. However, in 335 AB, war once again loomed across the Westlands, with Rowlin Darksbane, a male channeler of the One Power, declaring himself the Dragon Reborn, leading some to follow his banner, believing he was the reincarnation of Luce Theron Telemon, the great hero from the Age of Legends who defeated the forces of the Dark One at Sheol Ghul. However, the Aes Sedai of Tarvalin declared him a false dragon and ultimately defeated his armies to take him prisoner. For centuries, the Compact of Nations thrived, but after 1,000 years, the armies of the Dark One regained much of their former strength, now led by Dreadlords, corrupted humans able to channel the One Power. Though not as powerful as the Forsaken from the Age of Legends, the Dreadlords bred legions of Trolloc Warriors and gathered other Shadow Spawn like Murdral and Drakkar, ordering their forces to start raiding the northern territories of Jeremiad and Armael to begin the Trolloc Wars in 1000 AB. Although most humans rallied to join the forces of light against these dark armies, some betrayed their own people and became dark friends, lured to the shadow by promises of power and immortality. The nations of the Compact then prepared to defend themselves. However, their alliance proved less reliable than many might have hoped. As each realm was so concerned with defending their own borders, they rarely sent aid to help others. As a result, the Shadow Spawn soon overran the northern territories, destroying the city of Barsine in Jeremiad, as well as the Ogier-built city of Mafal de Daranel in Aramael. Although Jeremiad managed to survive the invasion, their eastern neighbor was not so fortunate and soon fell, allowing the Dark Armies to delve deeper into the continent, attacking Aradal and Cormanda. Not even Tarvalin was exempt from these incursions, forced to fend off 4 separate assaults over the years of the conflict. And as more enemies descended upon the Westlands, the remaining nations found themselves unable to win large-scale battles unless directly aided by the Aes Sedai, and so began launching smaller-scale attacks, cutting off portions of the Trolloc army from the main host in order to surround and defeat them. Desperate to protect his realm, King Balwin of Aridol listened to his corrupted advisor Mordeth and abandoned the light, embracing darkness and cruelty in order to defeat the Shadowspawn invasion. For a time he was successful, sacrificing legions of his own men to slaughter any enemy upon his land, but as hatred and suspicion took control of his people, a malevolent entity began to form that would ultimately lead to their downfall. Fearing that Aridol was going down the wrong path, King Thorin of Manetheren sent his son Prince Karr to try and persuade them to return to the light and once again embrace the Compact of Nations. But instead of listening to reason, Balwin had him arrested and tortured until he managed to escape. Upon learning of his son's imprisonment, King Thorin was outraged and sent an army to the gates of their capital, only to find the city empty and in ruins, with its people having turned on each other and destroyed themselves. Yet their corruption had been so profound that in their absence they left behind the Mashadar, a terrible fog that roamed the streets at night, killing anyone it touched. The army of Manetheren was appalled by what they saw and immediately withdrew from the territory, renaming it Shadar Logoth, and soon enough even the forces of the Dark One feared venturing near after an entire army disappeared attempting to camp in the city overnight. With Aradel fallen, the Shadowspawn continued their offensive, attacking Manetheren, where King Thorin ruled a mighty army, waging an unending campaign against the enemy from the very beginning, sending their forces not only to protect their own borders, but also to aid the other nations of the Compact whenever they could. In time, his grandson Aemon also took up the fight, forming a group of elite veteran warriors known as the Band of the Red Hand. With the aid of Manetheren, the armies of light at last started to make some progress, holding off the enemy advance and winning a great number of battles. However, the momentum of the war soon changed once more, as the Shadowspawn came under the command of Ba-Alzaman, a new general of unmatched cunning and skill, who gained such a fearsome reputation, many started to believe he was the Dark One made flesh. However, it was later learned that the general was more likely to be Ishamael, leader of the Forsaken, who were defeated by Lews Therin during the Age of Legends. Although the Forsaken were locked away in Sheol Ghul, Ishamael was only partially imprisoned, able to return to the world for 4 decades every 1,000 years. And so in the midst of the Trolloc Wars, Ba-Alzaman appeared and led the armies of the Dark One to many victories, including the conquest of Manetheren. After years spent pushing back the Shadowspawn, King Thorin died and the crown passed to his grandson Aemon, who continued to rule in much the same way, sending their armies to aid their neighbors whenever possible. However, when the invasion of Manetheren culminated in the Battle of the Tarandrel River, the king found himself unjustly abandoned, with no reinforcements arriving from the other nations of the Compact. Defeated and in retreat, King Aemon decided to make a last stand at the Battle of Aemon's Field, where he died alongside his men. Aemon's wife, Queen Eldrine, a powerful Aes Sedai, felt the death of her beloved husband and went mad with grief, summoning an enormous amount of the One Power, which erupted to destroy both the realm as well as the Shadow Army descending upon them. Later, it was learned that Tetswan, the Amerlin seat of the Aes Sedai, purposefully betrayed Manetheren, preventing reinforcements from arriving simply because of a personal grudge she held against Queen Eldrine. And so in punishment, she was deposed and stilled, a process which stripped her of the ability to channel the One Power, a fate many of their kind believed was worse than death. Cormanda and Almoran soon collapsed as well, allowing the vast horde of Trollocs to sweep through the southern lands of Earran, destroying the capital of Londoran Kor, as well as the city of Barashta. After 40 years of hard-fought battles, the great general Ba-Alzaman vanished without a trace, leaving the Dark Armies scattered across the Westlands, far from their base of power in the north, and without a proper central authority. In addition, by 1251 AB, the Aes Sedai chose Rashima Karen Mosa as their new Amerlin seat, a powerful sorceress as well as expert military commander who led the forces of light to many great victories, including the defeat of the Trolloc army during the 4th invasion of Tarvalin in 1290 AB. She then launched a 10-year campaign to push back the Shadow, winning battles at the Kyson Pass, the Sorel Steppe, Larapel, and Tel Norwin. Her efforts then led to one final confrontation at the Battle of Mirgande in 1301 AB, an epic battle of massive scale fought over several days, which ultimately ended in defeat for the Shadowspawn. Unfortunately, Rashima did not live to celebrate her victory, as she was surrounded by dreadlords during the battle, able to take 9 of them with her to the grave. Although the war continued on a smaller scale until 1350 AB, the attacks lessened significantly before the war finally came to a close and the last of the Shadowspawn retreated into the far north, bringing an end to the years after breaking. Only 5 of the 10 nations of the Compact survived into the free years that followed, but after centuries of war, these territories soon collapsed as well, replaced by smaller realms with new governments, once again tasked with rebuilding their fallen civilizations. During the years of the Trolloc Wars, fighting spilled beyond the Westlands into the desert wastes of the East, but with the harsh conditions of the terrain, the Aiel clans united and threw back any attempt at invasion, leaving the Shadow Spawn to nickname the area the Dying Ground. Further east, Shara also fell under attack by the Dark Armies, but they too were able to defeat the threat against them. Across the sea in Shanchan, they were largely spared from this centuries-long struggle, having already spent years destroying the Shadow Spawn on their continent, long before the Trolloc Wars ever began. The Land of Madmen also avoided this conflict as they were too far south from the Great Blight to be affected, and had long ago isolated themselves from outside contact. Love audiobooks? Then be sure to check out Audible, where they have the world's largest collection available. Simply sign up through the link in the description box below and get 2 free audiobooks to start out. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Nate Strong the Liberator, Daedry Dragonswit, Checo the Clever, and Midori Senin. If you would like to help CivilizationEx, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.